would say Happy New Year to everybody. It is 2021, but to be honest, it's pretty much the same crap as we had at the end of last year. So let's just hope it's a much better year. Everybody gets vaccinated who needs to, and we can at least get this country moving by March, or not, if the latest June. In the meantime, we do know that several young adults have been successful in getting their hospitals to give them risdiplam. And a few people have asked me how they can exercise their arms and their hands, because basically they're not expecting their legs to do very much. Now, this is obviously type 2, because type 1s, most of the type 1s on risdiplam will still be children, and type 3 are, as usual, unfortunately being left out. But while I am directing this at those of you who may be getting risdiplam or on risdiplam, this is about hand, arm and shoulder function for anybody. So there will be plenty in this webinar for lots and lots of people. Now, what I want to go through first is the upper limb scale. It was put on the website and advertised. You may have downloaded it. If not, you can download it. But we will go through it. I'll show you all the equipment. And it is a nice way of testing yourself, of seeing if you're progressing, of checking, because you may or may not get regular physiotherapy assessments to go with your risdiplam. Also, it gives you an idea of things that you can be trying, even if you haven't been assessed yet, or if you're not on it yet. Now, the upper limb scale is, the problem that we have with it is there is a very specific kit that comes with it. This is the bulk of the kit, and I'll go through everything in the kit, but there is also a mat, and on the mat are these circles. So these circles are on the mat. Now, you can make the mat. I have, as it happens, these are where the circles are for SMA. And if people need the dimensions of exactly how far, now on the mat, the size of the circle is the size of a can. And it's an empty can, and you need an empty can as part of the kit. Now, when you see the picture of the kit, if I show you it again, it looks as though there's several cans in here. But this is not for SMA. This kit is also used in Duchenne muscular dystrophy, and they stack cans in that. I'll talk a little bit about the difference between the two scales, and you can do things like stacking. Some of these are full, some of them are empty. But for SMA, we use an empty can, so it's quite light. So it's just a case of moving it. It's something that's quite a nice size to grip, and you need a slidey surface. Now, let's start with the mat, because the mat, which you will need to draw your circles on, can be anything that's slidey, but it needs to be a reasonable size. And I'm going to tip the screen down so that you can see. And what I have here is a piece of A2 card. This is a fairly thick cardboard you can get in an art shop or office supplies. But let's get real. Many of you will have had Amazon boxes this big. The likelihood is you all have cardboard tucked away somewhere that is at least A2 size, if not bigger. And if you don't get Amazon parcels, then where are you in the world? The other thing you can use, which you may have, is this sort of tablecloth matting, PVC, nice stuff that you get in the hardware shops that are on every high street these days, and that's nice and slidey as well. And if you haven't got a big piece of cardboard that's slidey, or you haven't got a piece of matting, you may find that you have from the kids a splat mat that you used to put. I know we've got 2 splat mats left over that we now wash the dog with, to be honest, but I'm sure most of you can find something that you would be able to slide a can on to make a good surface for the upper limb scale. Now you need to be able to sit. You can sit in your wheelchair. It's not a test of getting out of your wheelchair. It's all about the upper limbs. So you're in your wheelchair, so you need an accessible table, a table on your wheelchair or a tray to be able to do the test. So the other pieces of equipment in this kit are a wrist weight, open, 500 grams. Mine's actually a kilo, but you need a 500 gram one. You need this strange thing, which you can get. It's probably the only piece of kit you would have to go out and buy. You don't have to go out and buy the wrist weight. You could use any 500 gram weight. This is probably the only thing you're not going to have around the house. And this is a push light. And what you do is you push to put it on and you push to put it off. Now, if you just push and let go, it'll come off. But if you push hard enough, it'll stay on. And that's the point of having this push light in the assessment. Okay, so you need a cup, just a sort of standard plastic. This is cardboard, a standard cup. You need coins. Now it's supposed to be 2. I find 2 extremely boring. 2p pieces are perfect. I know everything's gone cashless these days, but I'm sure you've all still got some coins hanging around somewhere. I think that it's actually nicer to have more coins. The original scale that came from the MFM had 10 coins. You used to time yourself picking up 10, which I think is a much nicer thing to do. Now, these little pots at the bottom are called Ziploc containers, and Ziploc is just a trade name, and you can use anything where you have to try and get a top off a bottom. And if you get Indian takeaways, which I'm sure millions of you have had Indian takeaways during lockdown, you will find all your bits and pieces come in these wonderful things that you can use. And that's exactly where this one came from, an Indian takeaway. You need a pencil. And probably the easiest way to get a pencil is to get one that you just click on the top and the lead comes down, so you don't have to keep finding a sharpener. Then you need a set of weights. You don't have to buy a set of weights. Everybody can make a set of weights, and I have made a set of weights, 20 grams, 50 grams, these are split peas, 200 grams, 500 grams. And again, those little circles, you will be moving and lifting the weights across the circles. Then it goes to 500 grams, bag of rice, and a kilo, which some of you will be able to manage, but not everyone, is this just happens to be a bag of sugar. So nothing so complex that you have to go out and buy anything. Because you get these little bags, quite a lot of places, you get them with buttons on your clothes, you get all sorts of things in these little bags, so you've probably been throwing them out. If those are difficult for you to hold, you may also find that some of your jewelry or bits and pieces come in these, and you may find that these little drawstring bags are actually easier for you to pick up. And if that's the case, then stick them in these little drawstring bags. That's the 20 gram one. Don't forget, I know this little drawstring bag's not going to weigh very much, but the more you add, the more weight there is in there. You can also cheat and just pull it up by the string if you're not very good at grasping. But if you're not very good at grasping, you're going to have trouble with your phone. So that's the equipment you need. As I say, everybody's got it, particularly in lockdown with your Indian takeaways. You've all got a bag of split peas or something similar that you can use, your rice, your lentils, your empty can. This is just happens to be coconut milk because that's what I was using today. And the only thing you need to get is this lock. So you've got your cardboard, and then what it starts, and you're going to have to excuse me because I have got the scale here on my computer. So you start with something called an entry item. And the entry item is based on the Brooks scale. And the Brooks scale basically says, can you bring your arms straight all the way up and get your hands to touch over your head with straight elbows? And that's the top level of Brook. Hands over your head with straight elbows. And then it goes down to bent elbows. Then you go, where is it? up to shoulder height, up to hands, can raise a cup with 200 grams, which is this one. So you stick your 200 gram weight. Can you lift it with one hand or two hands? You can use your hands to pick up a pencil and write, or you've got no hand use. And those are what we call the entry items. And you will be tested on those in the physiotherapy assessment to see where you're starting from. Because if you can't do very much with your hands, there is no point in then asking you to lift a 1 kilo weight or a 500 gram weight. But obviously, if you can do all the stuff where you can get your hands over your head, then you're going to be doing much more of the test. So that is just your entry level items. Then we go to bringing your hands from your lap onto the table. It's as simple as that. Both hands together, if you can manage, from your lap onto the table. Most of you can do that. There will be a few people who find that difficult. Again, these things are something to practice. If you have difficulty with it, that's an area where you're going to be practicing. Some of these exercises are for shoulders, elbows, hands and fingers. So what you will then see on the scale, which I do not have printed, so I can't show you. So if you haven't got one, you will need to get it. You have what looks like a little road, and it's got a loop. And what you need to do is get a pencil and follow that loop all the way around. Now, it doesn't matter if you touch the line. This is not about keeping the pencil inside the line. This is about a continuous line that you start at one end and you don't stop until you get to the other end. And that's what the test is looking for, that you're actually consistently managing to draw all the way around, that you're not stopping and starting, you're not having to lift off, or you're not stuck going up around the loop. You can, if you want. I find it a little bit daft, but you can if you want, because people will ask you to try it with the hand you don't write with as well. And that's more complicated because obviously, unless it's something you've ever practiced, not a lot of people can actually do that sort of thing. So that's the next one. The next item is to pick up 2 tokens. Or 2 coins. The kit has tokens. We're talking about 2 pence pieces. Let me move those so that you can see them. And you are literally picking up 2 pence pieces. And the idea is that you pick it up, you put the first one in your hand, and then you pick the second one up. You don't pick them up like that. And what you may not do, which somebody once did, which I thought was very clever, stack it and then pick them both up together. So the idea is that you can pick up 2 coins. Now, as I say, I think 2 is pretty boring. It's very rare that you were going to have 2 coins, even unless it's 2 £2 coins. The original test was 10. So a nice thing that you can be doing is get 10 coins and see how many you can manage to get into your hand, pick them up without dropping them. Any you drop, you can pick up, and see if you can time yourself doing 10 coins. Now, the original test had 10 coins in 20 seconds. So if you didn't manage 10 because you were dropped a few along the way, then you wouldn't score. But it is quite a nice little timed test you can do yourself. And sometimes timed tests are quite nice because you can see if you're speeding up. So keep going and see if you can do 10. But the actual upper limb scale will only do 2, which, as I say, I find incredibly boring. Okay, then you will be placing coins into a cup. It's meant to be at shoulder height, stuck out in front of you, and you will be able to read what is going on. But when you get to some of these items, you will need somebody to help you. And that means that you've got to recruit somebody, a carer, a relative, sibling, child, parent, spouse, to help you with the test. A lot of this is done at shoulder height in a circle. So shoulder height forwards, shoulder height out to the side. And that's the idea of it. And you will be able to read that on the test, but it does mean that is one thing you can't practice unless you're incredibly clever and can hold it with one and do it with the other. If you're that good, you probably don't needing Ristiplam. So when you have done that one, you will see there's a little stick man on the assessment that will tell you how to do it. So then you take the token out to the side and put it in a cup at the side. The next item is the push button light. And as I say, the idea is that you push on the light with fingers and you push it hard enough to get the lights to stay on. If you can push it and get the lights on but can't get them to stay on, you will score, but you will only score one. You can, if you want, use your thumb. Next item. Oh, I did forget to mention this, but it's not something that you won't have got. You need to tear a piece of paper, and not everybody can do that. And the idea is you get a piece of paper. Don't use your best paper. This is a piece of rubbish that came through the door the other day. So when you get all these daft circulars that come through, all you want to do is fold it in 4 and try and tear it. Now that isn't as easy as it sounds. A lot of people do find that when something is folded into 4, it is quite difficult to tear. So then you can open it out so you've got it in 2 and try tearing it, but don't cheat and tear it down the fold where it was folded in 4. That's cheating. So then you have to try and tear 2. And the other thing is, I know some of you with SMA have very sweaty hands. Don't mash the paper in your sweaty hands and then tear it. That is also cheating, okay? And then rubbing it or holding it against your chest and pulling down. You've got to hold it away from your body. You can have your arms resting on the table. You can even have the paper down and tear. But you need 2 hands and tear. And if you can't tear a piece of paper folded in 2, start practicing with a piece of paper and just tear a single sheet. And again, it is something to practice. And for those of you who can manage it, you'll think it's fairly basic, but there are people who can't do it. You can get normal paper, copy of paper, or, you know, the last bill you had, and do it with that. And that's your tearing paper. Not everybody can do that, surprisingly enough. Okay, the next one is opening the container. And some of them are harder than others. And admittedly, the more often you do it, the easier it becomes. The other thing is you will notice that there is a tiny little lip on there. Now, in a proper Ziploc container, it actually has a bit of a sticky outfit. But if you find the little lip, there is nothing to stop you pulling up from that lip to open that container. Now, for this one, strangely enough, you can hold it against your body and do it. So if you're having difficulty, you can actually hold it against your body and open it that way, or hold it down on the table and try and lift it, do it that way with 2 hands. Nobody's expecting you to do it with 1 hand. That would be a little bit ridiculous. So that's the Ziploc container. The next one is similar to the what we called the entry item, and that's your cup with your 200-gram weight, lifting it to your mouth. And the theory being that 200 grams is the same weight as 200 mils, so that's pretty much a full cup. You can do it with 2 hands, you can do it with 1. And the beauty of doing it with a weight is nothing gets spilt. So that's quite nice. You don't have to pour a drink all over yourself. Now, one of the things about doing things one-handed or two-handed, if you are doing it with 1 hand, it's obviously, as you know, you will probably use the same hand each time. So that's fine, but then it may be worth trying to, if you're doing the coins, use your other hand and try it with the other hand instead of using the same hand each time. So have a go at doing things differently. It may be with the Ziploc container that you tend to hold it in one and open the top with the other. Try it the other way around. Hold it in the other hand and open it says she can't do it. Open it with the other hand. Same with the cup. If you always raise your cup because you've got one stronger hand, when you know you're not going to get a mouthful of beans or a front full of liquid, try the other hand and see if you can do it with the other hand. You could be very brave and try the 500 grams and see if you can lift that. It's half a pint. Well, 500 mils. It's not, is it? It's a pint. So it's a pint glass. So you may even want to practice. Oh, that's 200. Sorry, that's 500. That's a bit heavier. That's your bag of rice. So you may well want to see if you can lift your bag of rice to your mouth, because that's your pint glass. Okay. So the next lot are all circles, and it's about lifting a weight from one circle to the other without sliding. So where you saw the circles on the mat, although you only have to do 3 for SMA, it's 5 for Duchenne, you need to lift from that circle to that circle. And as I say, I can give people the dimensions if they need it. We can always send a manual to show you how to draw your circles. The circles are a can size, and it's just how far apart the circles are. So the idea is that you've got your can on one circle and you lift it to the circle at the side. So it's midline to outer, and then the other side, midline to outer. And you start that with 200 grams. So you get your 200 gram weight and you lift from one circle to the next. You can still score for sliding, but you cannot put it down and push it with your fingers or shove it with your hand. It's got to actually be held and slid. To score 2, you actually need to pick it up and put it on the other circle. And as I say, if you find that difficult, it may be easier in your little drawstring bag to pick it up that way and have a whole handful there. Now, obviously on my little diagram, it looks as though it's very close, but when you've got it in front of you, it's much further away. So there's a lot of lifting of weights from the midline to the outer, then you're going across yourself from this circle to that circle. So you're taking it from here across yourself, and then with the other hand here across. So there's a lot of lifting weights. And in fact, on the SMA scale, the heaviest one they use is the 500 gram. I'm not sure if they use the kilogram weight on this scale. So then you need your 500 gram sand weight, and mine's a kilo, so you don't have to have one of those. You can just use your bag of rice, and that's a case of taking that from your lap onto the table with 2 hands. And from there, can you then take it up in the air with 2 hands? All very easy explained on the test. It does actually tell you what you need to do. Oh no, there is a 1 kilo. So it does actually have the 1 kilo weight. Can you bring it above shoulder height? Now it is a kilo. Do be careful if you want to try it. Start making sure that you can lift it. 2 hands for starters. It's not impossible if your hand's big enough. If you've got tiny hands, you might find it hard. If your grip's weak, you may need to have some sort of grippy glove on if it's something slippy. Again, you may want to put it into a carrier bag or a bag to try and lift it up that way, a little bag, and practice. Don't drop it on yourself. Don't drop it on your other half or your carer or someone. You will not be popular. And don't sprain your shoulder or your elbow or your hand, because actually a kilo is not light. So don't be over clever. Stick to the 500 if you can do it. And if not, then you've got your 200 and your 100 to be practicing with. You don't have to do a kilo. It's not something you probably lift very often. And that is the upper limb test. So really not that difficult. As I say, you can start with the cans, then you go to the weights. Pretty self-explanatory. You can score yourself. You can use it just for ideas of how to do it. You can also check that your physio's doing it, And if you don't have a physio at the centre where you're getting your wrist clamp and you're not getting a physio assessment, then at least you will be able to assess yourself. Marnie, have we got questions?
Yes, we've got quite a few.
Okay, that's absolutely fine.
I'll just scroll back. Oh, so the first one, I can remember it, is when you were on about using a piece of cardboard and something slippery, because you use a slide sheet. It
might ruck up as you're moving. It wouldn't be impossible, but you'd have to have it well flattened onto your surface, something a little bit more substantial, but there's no reason why you couldn't try a slide sheet. I have used slide sheets. They're quite big. It may work. It may work. It's just the can. I'm wondering whether the can would slide on the slide sheet. But the only way you're going to know is to give it a try.
Okay. When you were on about lifting the hands onto a table, can you kind of like crawl your hands up onto it, or does it have to be a like straight movement?
To get the full score, you need to lift both hands at the same time onto the table. If you can lift one and then the other, you can also score. If you need to crawl up, or as some people may do, crawl up their body and put it on, then what you need to do is somehow record that that's the way you did it. And with practice and exercise, which we are going on to, the real fun bit of the whole webinar, if with practice you can do it, then you can see you've changed. The whole point about it is, if you're going on to a drug, or if you're waiting for some other drug, or whatever you're doing, any exercise, you want to be able to see progress. And sometimes if it's slow, you don't always remember where you started from. You do 3 months of these exercises and you can't remember how quickly you could pick up 2 coins, or how difficult it was to open the Ziploc container, or how much you struggled with lifting a weight because you could only slide it and now you can lift it. So it is nice to record it. Even if you don't score, you can put how you did it, because then you can still see progress.
Okay, great. Another, well, it's an assumption, but they want you to affirm this assumption, is that, is it right that these tests are done without like arm supports on?
Yes, that would be slightly cheating. If you really do have difficulty in moving and cannot do it without the arm support, start with the arm supports. Start trying to improve with the arm supports and then try it without. Now, the whole point is you are on a slidey surface, so you shouldn't need to have arm supports, because your arm should be supported on the slidey surface. So in theory, for a lot of these tests, not the lifting, but then you shouldn't be lifting with the arm support, because you can't really score the fact you've lifted your arm if it's the arm support. So for some of them, like the sliding and the can, you should just manage with your arm supported on the sliding, whatever it is you're using.
Okay. And someone's asking, what, in terms of these kind of things, what if you can't lift your hands?
There are still items that you can do on there. You can still do the sliding ones. You can still try picking the coins up. You could still try the drawing ones. You don't necessarily have to lift your hands to do those. So you have to pick from the assessment which ones you think you could still do or still practice. The other thing is, I've got loads and loads of activities and ideas. We'll be talking in the exercises, fun things, hopefully. You may feel like a big kid, so what? Big deal. If you raid the kids' toy box, big deal. But the whole idea is that we are working, and I'm not stopping at hands, fingers, and forearms. We are going to look at shoulders. I have my favorite. If you really have difficulty, you can use your arm supports. I'd rather you didn't. I'd rather you had the bar of your hoist, the hoist slings tied yourself up and used that to support your arms, because it's not quite as supportive as your mobile arm support, a bit like the Rex, but not quite. And actually do some work with your shoulders. Now, yes, you can work your mobile arm supports, but the beauty of these, and I know the Rex is elastic as well, that you can actually do some work hanging up from your hoist bar.
Okay, good. How often should someone do the scale after starting treatment?
Don't do the scale too often. Pick a few items that you think that you really want to work on and do those. The scale, in theory, if you were tested in a hospital, would only be done 6 monthly. So my honest feeling is pick the items you like, pick the items you want to achieve. You know, if you're not really interested in picking up a kilo weight because you struggle with a 20-gram weight, then you don't have to worry about it. So my honest feeling is pick 5 or 6 items that you like. It might be tearing the paper, picking up the coins, drawing along the thing. It could be moving the can. It could be lifting up one of the weights. Pick the items that you like and do them and practice them and get better at them. And then look at the ones you have still having difficulty with, or the ones that aren't quite as appealing. Because by the time you've practiced some of the ones you do like, you may find that you've actually improved on some of the ones that weren't quite so interesting.
Okay, great. Do you do the scale before treatment as a baseline to see improvement?
In theory, yes. You shouldn't really start any treatment without some form of assessment, because how do you know if it's working? If you never have, yeah, I mean, you would be able to say, I mean, none of you are daft. You would be able to say, yeah, I can do that now and I couldn't do it. But what if you stay the same? How can you assess staying the same? And that is an issue. If many of you know that you are losing skills, once you start getting into your 30s, 40s, you start losing arm skills. So sometimes this is not about gaining, but not losing. And it's much harder to judge not losing than it is to judge gaining. And this is one of the big arguments that we've had to put up with Risdiplam, is that doctors have said, oh, but it doesn't prove any improvement. But not everybody worries about improvement. What they worry about is losing function. And that's scary. If there's things you can do, and obviously your phone's the classic, and you think you're not going to be able to do it, then you're going to worry about it. But if you maintain that function, because the drug is helping you to do it, that's important. And the classic was a young lady who doesn't have SMA, has a congenital muscular dystrophy, who still cuts her own fingernails. And she said, you know, I will really know I have deteriorated a lot when I am no longer able to do that. She says, it's the one function I can do, and I'll be devastated when I can't do it, because she was expecting to lose it. Now, if there was a drug for CMD that would stop her losing it, that would be her goal. That's enough for her. All the gains are a bonus, but not to deteriorate is the best start. And that's where people really often want to go, not to lose skills.
Okay. If you are on the weaker end in terms of grip and lifting above shoulders, what's the best way to start building that, in particular muscles at elbow and shoulders?
We'll go into that, but a lot of it is work with the bands, working inside lying, lots of work on slidey boards. You don't only have to have them flat, you can have them set at an angle. I know we've talked about this before. You can work up a slope. So you could have the board, and some of you will have sloping tables, some of you will have those triangular rests that you put your iPad on, that you can put on your knee. Some of you will have the beanie tables that you can put on a slope. You can start working up a slope. Working on the flat is easy. Going up a slope then becomes that little bit harder. And I've got some ideas for that as well.
Okay.
And swimming.
Will our local hospital be aware of this assessment in readiness for this plan?
If your neurologist is a neuromuscular consultant, then yes. I'm assuming that most people will get their Risdiplam from a neurologist who does know something about neuromuscular. What Roche are specifying, I have absolutely no idea. I mean, Roche is a Swiss company. They tend to use the MFM, which is a French assessment. Several of the items, the tearing paper, the coins, came from the MFM, but whether Roche are not asking for the MFM as far as I know, but the one that is used for SMA Reach, which is the database of assessments used in the UK, and I think it's mainly used for for children, but I think adults are going to be included on the SMA Reach database to look at the effects of all these drugs, then they will be using the upper limb scale. But then the other thing that you may be aware of is the EK scale, which also has some upper limb function, which we will talk about.
Okay. Someone else has just asked, is the assessment the same for a 16-year-old?
Yes. And a 7-year-old and a 10-year-old, as it happens. I think we use the upper limb from relatively young, from as young as 5, certainly from 7.
Okay. Someone else has just asked saying, I had my initial Risdiplam baseline test. It wasn't anywhere as in-depth as what you just went through. Are there different tests?
No, this is the main upper limb test that's used in SMA in the UK. If this was a person in the UK, I think that possibly the neurologist doesn't have a physiotherapist working with them, because if there was a physio working with a neurologist, they would have done some testing.
Okay. Can you score yourself at the appointment if you complete a task but do it in a different way?
One of the things about the upper limb is that it doesn't, some tests look at the quality of movement. One of the things about the upper limb is it looks at quantity rather than quality, and that's a positive. Can you do it? Can you not do it? So with the coins, can you pick them up? Can you not pick them up? With the tearing paper, can you do it in 4? Can you do it in 2? Not how you do it. I mean, obviously you can't cheat and use your teeth, or as I say, mash it. But if you can tear it, it doesn't matter if you tear a corner off or you tear it all the way down. So it's very much a case of doing it. It's quite a basic self-explanatory assessment. There's not a lot of ways you can do things. Can you lift both hands onto the table both together? There's not, I mean, not many people are going to do it that way. You're going to do it straight up and do it. If you can't, then obviously this is something you can work on. Lifting something off your lap, you know, have you spilt your hot lunch down there? Is there a chip managed to get itself down there? Have you lost a sausage down there? Why? I don't know. But, you know, there's not many ways you're going to do these things. They're fairly basic activities.
Yeah, I mean, an example I can think of when I did it is when you have to lift the cup up to your mouth. With the second weight in, I couldn't lift it straight up, but I managed to kind of take it round and roll it up and lift it. So my physio didn't score me, but she noted down that I was able to do it in that way. So maybe that's something you can do if you can't do something in a traditional way, is write down how you manage to do it.
This is what we call with compensation. It's doing it the way you would expect to do it, or with compensation. And you can do how you do it. So as you said right at the beginning, if you crawl your hands up, then you would write that down. The fact that you don't score on the scale is irrelevant. You did get your hands on the table. Write down how you managed to do it.
Okay, someone else has commented saying, seems I can lift a £1 coin, but not a 50p, as it's too thin and they can't get under it. So maybe that's something to practice, is to
Well, it's interesting that when they first developed the MFM, there was 80 items. It was mad. It was the craziest scale ever. And they cut it down to 33. And one of the hand items was picking up a needle. Now, for those of you who know, if you ever bitten your nails, the only way you pick up a needle is to squash your fingers down on it so that it sticks to your fingers and you pick it up. Those of you with nails will know the way you pick up a needle is to scoop it in your nail, so that it wasn't a function of power or dexterity, it was a function of how long your nails were. So that was the daftest test of the lot. So there are different things that different people are going to find harder and easier. So again, if you find a pound coin easier, start practicing with a pound coin and then try. But the 2p, yes, is narrower. You may want to try a £2. It's heavier and it's bulkier, but there's no reason why you shouldn't. The coins that actually come with the kit are very much 2p size. So 2p in depth and 2p in size generally. But start with a pound and then keep practicing with I wouldn't go necessarily for a 50p because it's quite big, but I wouldn't try with a 2p. And when you're trying, one of the tricks is not to try picking it up straight, but almost try and hold it down at one end. So what you've got, where's the camera gone? So that you're holding it with your thumb and you're lifting it with your finger. You're not trying to pick it up in one piece. You're actually holding one side down and lifting the other. It's not a case of trying to pick both of them up together. That's actually harder. Thumb at one side, finger at the other. Try it that way.
When I did the thing, my nails majorly got in the way all the way through the assessment. So if you do tend to have long nails, you may want to cut them for the assessment because they do make things difficult.
But on the other hand, if you've got long nails, you may want to do them all with your long nails. So you don't want to cut your nails, just keep doing it with your long nails and practice with those. I know because I've taken up pottery in the last couple of years that you can't do pottery with long nails either, because otherwise all your pots have nail prints in them.
Sorry, I've just lost my place on the question. Give me 2 seconds. Will this scale be used in hospitals around the country?
It should be used in every neuromuscular centre, certainly. It's those neurologists who are not in a specific neuromuscular centre that may not be using it. So if you went to somewhere like King's or Birmingham or Bristol, where they've got the adult services, you should have a proper assessment. But if you just have a neurologist who is working separately to give risdiplam, and there will be neurologists around, I know a couple of neurologists who would be quite keen to give risdiplam, but don't necessarily work with a neuromuscular service.
Okay. If our physio is not aware of the scale, can we get them trained on it?
There's no reason why they can't. The training is mostly done via Newcastle Neuromuscular Centre, but they can also look up the scale. It's online, download it, and it's almost just a case of reading it. The problem, as I say, is the kit, but there is nothing apart from the light that you actually need to go out and buy.
Okay. If someone is on treatment now or is about to start, what can we be doing now to be used as evidence to help in the risdiplam appraisal to get treatment for the rest of the community?
That's a really difficult one, because one of the arguments with risdiplam, as I say, is that one of the things that we know is that lack of deterioration is as important as improvement. And you just have to fight. You just have to say, these are the skills I have. I know that Gennady and I'm not sure who else it was, were talking to people about using the EK scale to see how their function had deteriorated over the last 10 years. And if you can persuade your neurologist that you have lost function, and the whole point of having the risdiplam is to prevent that loss, rather than doing anything dramatic to improve. I mean, you're not going to, if you're extremely weak, you're not suddenly going to start juggling in a circus, but you want to maintain the activity you've got and possibly improve. We're not talking about great strides. You have very atrophied muscle. Your muscle hasn't worked for a long time, if it has really ever worked at all. You will have contractures at your elbows, at your wrists. A lot of you will find it difficult to turn your hand over. All these things will contribute to the difficulties you've got. Risdiplam are not going to suddenly change your contractures or these problems. They're not suddenly going to mean that, you know, you can start waving your arms around in a Mexican wave, but you're not going to know what you can achieve until you try. And this is the most important thing. And I personally find it really hard that any consultant would say no when it's not even coming off the hospital budget, when it is being paid for. You know, there is no justification in saying you can't have it because it's too expensive, because nobody's asking you to pay for it. What we are saying is, give me a go. If it doesn't work, I accept. But if you don't give me a go, you'll never find out. And if you don't assess me properly, you will also never find out whether it's working. The side effects are minimal. And like with a lot of drugs, if you did have side effects, you stop the drug. You know, the weight between any benefit gained and side effects always has to be weighed up, but the side effects have been absolutely minimal. It has all its safety testing done. That's not an issue. And therefore, it's really hard if consultants are saying no to justify that when the drug at the moment is free.
Yeah. I mean, what I've been doing, which I'm happy obviously to pass on to anyone, is I've kept a little diary of things I've noticed over time, and that's obviously real life evidence of people are on it and they're wanting to do something to help, is just to keep notes of things you notice. Like the other day, it's tiny things. I was able to squeeze my lip gloss. Now that's a tiny thing, but it's still an improvement, you know. So even the small things can help.
So one of my little tricks here is a squeezy, is a spray bottle, and they're quite difficult, spray bottles. So you can buy those, you know, your travel kits that you get from Superdrug and Primark and everything. And if the worst comes to the worst, you can always fill it with gin, and that'll be a good thing to practice. A bit of a spray, no mouth spray, bit of gin. What is it that's fanciful at the moment? Ginger and something, or grapefruit and orange, or, you know, just get yourself filled up with gin, get yourself a spray bottle and practice that. Don't cheat and take the top off and drink it. So there's all sorts of little things. The things that I'm going to show you and go through now are everyday things, everyday objects. You've all got them around the house. You can play with, you can practice with, you can exercise with, tons of stuff. Nobody hasn't got some of these things around the house.
Yeah, okay. Last question for now is just if you could repeat the name of the scale for people.
It's the revised upper limb module.
Okay, thank you.
But if you just look upper limb scales, or TreatSMA have put it on the website.
Yeah,
so contact TreatSMA if you can't get hold of it.
Yeah, I will put the link up to where we've put it on the website after the webinar for people if they're wanting it.
Okay, so we have spent quite a lot of time on that, which is fine, but it does mean that I'm going to have to rush through my box of tricks, which is enormous. Okay, now, one of the things on the EK is, can you open a fizzy drinks bottle? Can you open it when it's never been opened before? And that's one of the issues. And the problem is, how do you practice if it's not been opened? get an empty bottle and practice with that, because the beauty of an empty bottle is you can hold it that way and take the top off and not get covered in anything. And then you can practice, because one of the problems with opening a bottle is putting it at the right height to actually get hold of it. If it's a bigger bottle, then you actually have to get to the top of it. And what you don't want to do is unscrew it if you've sort of got it tipped, because you're going to get covered in it. So what you need to do is get an empty bottle, get somebody to tie it up reasonably tight, or if not, try and tighten it up yourself. So practice unscrewing bottles, because if they're empty, as I say, then you're not going to end up getting covered in whatever was in it. So that's something to start practicing with. I have the obligatory washing up bowl. You can have sand in here, you can have water in here, you can play in here. Oh, be a big kid, it really doesn't hurt. Okay, I would imagine, I'm going to put this down for a second. I've got my laptop there. Everybody has these at home. Clothes pegs. If you don't have it, you may have posh ones in the craft box, which are pretty, because you make your little cards out of them, or they've got magnets on them. And what are we going to pick up? We're going to pick up cotton wool. We can pick up cotton wool. You can be very clever and pick up a marble. Maybe not this marble, not with that peg. And don't use one of those pegs, that won't work at all. There is something, a little packet of jelly beans. Get your packet of jelly beans and see if you can pick up your jelly beans. Oh, gosh, they're not quite that easy. Did you know it was difficult to pick up a jelly bean with a peg? No, that is pretty difficult. There you are, there's a competition for you. Pick up a jelly bean with a peg. You can get a set of dominoes and set up a domino thing where you've got to get your whole lot of your dominoes and then do a domino tower. You can build them this way. You can have great fun with a set of dominoes. You can even play dominoes if you wanted to. Okay, important, your pack of cards. Get the snap out, get the old lady out, old maid, not the old lady. Get the old maid out, get the snap out, get the matching games out. Turn cards over. People forget actually how to turn cards these days, because everything's that. You don't turn pages of a book anymore, everything's that. So you need to go back to actually turning cards. Use both hands, because this is really important exercise for that turning your hands palm up. Turn over. Have a race. See how quickly you can turn over a pack of cards. Time yourself. If a pack is too much, take out a suit. Take out 10 and see how quickly you can turn over 10 cards. So a pack of cards is something you've got around the house. We have got, oh, the polystyrene stuff. You can play with the polystyrene stuff. Can you get a peg on that? Oh, no. Oh, very interesting. I'm sticking to my cotton wool, I think, with that one. I have got better pegs, I must admit. Okay. You can make things with balls and craft stuff. You can make a tetrahedron with straws and polystyrene balls. You can do all sorts of things. You can, oh, I know what you can do. Threading beads. Whose kids have got these? And if you haven't got them, get in the sewing box, or the missus's sewing box, or the mother's sewing box, and get out the old cotton reels and your string and do a bit of threading. Time yourself. It's another one you can time yourself on, is threading cotton reels. And if you're too big and that's too much and you don't want to thread cotton reels, get beads out and thread beads. And if you just think you're too big and too old to do something as banal as that, get the button box out and thread a needle, or get somebody to thread a needle for you. Then get the button box out, thread a needle, get a piece of material and make button pictures. Start sewing. How many of you have never sewn or not sewn for a long time? Get the needle and thread out. Doesn't have to be the skinniest needle in the world. You can use the thick embroidery needles, the tapestry needles. You can do all sorts of things. There's your pack of needles. Look, you can get some really big ones. Where's the camera gone? There we are. Get your pack of needles out and get threading some needles if you're so clever. If you're too clever for these things, or they're too childish. Zips. Get a purse out and see if you can manage a zip, because that's not the easiest thing in the world. You may want to try both hands. Going round corners is always an interesting one with a zip. And if that's too easy, try an open-ended zip, because that's not so easy. So practice your zips. Because if there's something that I have found is that people saying, "Mummy, do my zip for me." Don't say that in physio where we are. Do not say that in physio where we are. You will not. Oh, there's my big one. That's my big peg. That's much bigger. Let's see if I can get a bean. There we are. I can get a jelly bean with that. You could have a race to see how quickly you could eat them. Don't choke yourself, though. You can do things with marbles. You can even pick up a marble with a peg. You can, honest, you can. Now, the thing about pegs is some of them are springier than others. So again, you can try different pegs. Try the other hand. See if you can peg. And again, a nice one for your arms. Don't forget, if you can't move from the shoulder, plonk your elbow down and work from the elbow. So the elbow's done. Get somebody to hold a piece of card and see how many pegs you can stick on the card. Now, remember, one of the things that we're constantly saying about SMA is fatigue. You will fatigue over time. So don't think you can spend hours and hours doing lots of power type stuff. Swap exercises, swap games, swap activities. What else have we got? We've got finger puppets. You can do a show for the little ones. Balls. And of course, you can stack. You can stack whatever you like. You can go and get stacking cups from kids. You can get a load of these pots and stack these. But more importantly, you can get the stuff out and play Play-Doh. Get the Play-Doh out. Get the therapy out. But if, again, that's a bit boring and banal and you're a bit too grown up for therapy, or then go in the kitchen, get the flour out and start making bread or pastry, or make some biscuits. Get your hands dirty, get in and get that pastry made. Don't go and buy it. Don't get the Maggi mix out. Get working your pastry. Come on, we can manage. I want to see somebody with SMA on Bake Off. I know there are people who are doing amazing things. Don't say no, Marnie. Come on, there must be somebody out there who could manage to get onto Bake Off. Get your pastry skills working. Get your bread skills working. They had somebody without a leg this time. This time they had somebody in a wheelchair. There are so many things that you could be doing in the kitchen. Even peeling a potato. Any of you peeled potatoes recently? Try potatoes that are a few weeks old, much harder. Okay, so where's it gone? One of the things that a lot of people complain about is things like Lego is really difficult. But there are lots of games. I know that's a horrible noise, sorry. Magnets. There's lots of games you can play with magnets. So again, get the kids' toy boxes out. This is the beauty of lockdown. Put the iPad away, put the phone away. Oh God, put the phone away. That's a bit like saying slit your throat, isn't it? and get the magnets out, play with the magnets. You can do all sorts of things, much easier to play with. Get constructing with magnets, all sorts of fun things you can make if you can't manage the Lego and the other stuff. Okay, now the other thing about magnets is they stick, and that's quite nice. So if you've got magnetic letters, even better if you've got a metal tin, which you don't get these days because everything comes in plastic tins, so you have to go and find the old tins. This, which is cute, was this is relatively recent. You do get toys in these little tin boxes, and you can get the magnets out and stick the magnets on the tin. Doesn't work on the paint side, but it works on the non-paint side. And the beauty of lifting magnets is they stick. It's not like something's going to fall off. So get the magnets, get it up higher, try and lift up and see how high you can get a magnet. Or if you can't manage this, get a sloping board, something that you rest your cookery books on, something that you rest anything on. Put the magnetic surface on there and see how high. And again, you can start off by sliding them up and then go to lifting them up. Some of the children's ones, I know Early Learning Centre, which is no longer there, used to do a magnetic board with lines, and then you could write lines on, but you could see how high you can go. The beauty of having something with a picture is that you could tell from the picture, but as I say, this is not the best or the easiest one. And you do get these little magnets with a sort of peg hook on it, which is sometimes easier to hold if you have difficulty holding things. So get the magnets out is another way of working. There is no shortage of stuff you have in the home. Now, going back to the washing up bowl, what you need to do is get some old shampoo bottles, fill them up and do squeezing. See if you can fill quite a squishy one. Remember, plastic bottles have different thickness, they have different squishiness to them. So find something, one of the easiest bottles to squeeze is often a washing up liquid bottle. Get an empty washing up liquid bottle, get somebody to fill it for you and squeeze, and that is such good hand exercise. Or you could always, you don't have to use a washing up bowl, you could just go to the sink and do it in the sink. Do it when you're in the bath. See if you can, if you still have a bath, see if you can squeeze it up in the air. I know that's messy, but it's not if you're in the bath, or at least in the bathroom, and squeeze it around the bathroom. You could do squeezy paints if you wanted to. As Marnie said, she could squeeze her lip gloss. Now, she's not going to do that all over the place, but you could try squeezing paint pots. You could try squeezing toothpaste. There's all sorts of things you can squeeze. And the beauty is you can start, if you get the shampoo bottles, if you get the squishy bottles, you can do it with two hands for starters. There's nothing to say you have to do it with one. But squeezing bottles is a great one. Play-Doh is a great one. Building with sand, building with clay, all sorts of things that you can be doing. And if you want to confine your mess, you can confine it to a washing up bowl. There are so many things that you can get up to in here that are quite nice. Any questions, Marnie, before we go on to more general arm and hand exercises?
There's a few people who are asking if you've literally got no ability to move your hands, how's best to start in terms of exercise?
Okay. When you say no ability to move your hands, you've got to think what you're talking about. Are you talking about moving from the shoulders? Are you talking about moving your fingers? Are you talking about absolutely nothing? If you're talking about absolutely nothing, it's really difficult to get started. This is when we will tape. So we will often tape to stimulate muscle. Now, there is a taping webinar that we did in the past. I actually taped a hand And if you go back to that taping webinar, you will see how you can use tape to tape a hand. So you can use tape. The other thing you can do is go back to your washing up bowl, nice warm water, and start trying to get your fingers moving in warm water, because very often they will move in water when they won't move anywhere else. If you still can't get anything, you may be able to get your physio to do a little bit of electrical stimulation if you seriously got nothing in your hands. Now, how much movement can you get with electrical stimulation? It's very, very variable. Not everybody likes the sensation of electrical stimulation, but you can get electrical stimulation that will help to start your wrist moving and possibly your fingers. Now, when you pull your wrist back like that, you can see that I am not moving my fingers, but when I start pulling my wrist back, my fingers move automatically. I am not moving my fingers, but they start curling as I pull my wrist back. If you've got absolutely nothing, you have got a physio, they may be able to work with you to start on that movement, because that's one of the basics of hand movement, is not actually your fingers, it's your wrist. And what happens is, as your wrist comes back, your fingers start to curl, and that's the beginning of grip. So it's perfectly possible, if you've got a physio that knows what they're doing, particularly the adult physios are much more into electrical stimulation because most children don't like it. Start working on a bit of electrical stimulation. Any more questions, Marnie?
Yeah, we've got people asking if knitting and crocheting would be good activities to do.
Absolutely. Men as well, don't kid yourself. If men think that they're too big for knitting, look up somebody called Kaffe Fassett. I think it's Kaffe Fasset, who was an amazing knitter and designer of knitwear. Yes, obviously, if you find it difficult to use the needles together, then crochet may be easier, but certainly knitting and crochet, sewing, embroidery, anything like that, pottery even, you can build clay. You don't have to go and get a potter's wheel. You can build with clay. You can make your own salt dough and build with clay. You don't fire it, you dry it. It'll probably all drop to bits, but what difference? As long as you don't try putting plants or drinks in it, it probably will last a little while. So yes, absolutely, all the crafts you could be doing.
Okay, so this is something that's sprung into my head, so I'll see what you think. Is, you know, when you're doing the pegs, if people aren't able to do that, maybe they could try with, you know, like the practice chopsticks that are linked at the top, but are maybe easier to squeeze, and they could start with that and then move on to the pegs.
That is another way of doing a peg. Sometimes that is harder than that, of actually using mostly thumb. Now that is, many people will find that easier. And if you still don't find that easy, you may find it easier if you put it in your whole hand and grip it that way, or even this way, so that you put it in your hand rather than in just a thumb and couple of fingers, so that you're holding it with your whole hand and squeezing it that way. Might be a better way to start if you're really finding that difficult with a peg. There's nothing that comes with the instructions for pegs. Haven't seen many instructions, but there's nothing that comes with the instructions that says you've got to do it that way. Nothing to stop you doing it that way or with your whole hand.
Okay. We've got a question on automatic hand cycles, asking, are they useful? How long should you use them to start with? And is it okay to have assistance to start with if you're struggling to grip it?
If you're struggling to grip it, you need to somehow adapt the handles. One of the things that's quite nice to adapt things is the pipe lagging. So that if you get the very wide pipe lagging, sometimes you can put it on the handles, make the handles much wider. Otherwise, you could maybe bandage the handles, because one of the things is gripping tightly. And sometimes if you can grip something bigger, that makes it easier to put your hands on. But there is no reason why you shouldn't get assistance, because even the passive movement is good movement. Now, there's three things that you should think about. Firstly, the machine. Can you not only go forwards, but also go backwards? Or does it only go one way? Because going backwards is a whole set of different movements. So if yours goes forwards and backwards, then you've got double the value in that respect. The other thing is, can you increase the resistance? Can you make it harder or easier? And also, is there anything on it that will show you how many repetitions you've done? Because it's very hard to count when you're going round and round, particularly if you get a bit faster, you tend to lose it. So does it have a little counter on it as well, to either show you how many cycles you've done or how many kilometers you've managed or whatever? So it is quite nice to have something that will tell you how many cycles you've done. But it's really important, I think, to be able to alter the resistance. If it only just goes round at one level of resistance, then ultimately you're not going to gain an awful lot, because you won't be able to improve.
Okay. So another question is, when you're just starting out kind of doing exercise again, should you start out doing it every day or work your way up to doing it every day?
You should be doing it every day. What you shouldn't be doing is fatiguing yourself. So little and often is by far the best way of doing it. So a little bit every day is better than going hell for leather one day and then giving it a break for a couple. So if you start with a few minutes once a day, twice a day, then you can go on and do it a little bit longer. But every day is the most effective way of exercising. And the other thing you need to think about is musical instruments. Pianos, keyboards, anything like that. Keyboards are actually a lovely place to start, because if you've got a keyboard, you don't have to do an awful lot to actually get those fingers moving. And again, you want your keyboard set on quite a nice slippy surface so that you can slide your arms sideways while you're playing it. Because if you're one of these people that finds it difficult to lift your hands, you need to have a very low keyboard, or you need to have a wrist rest so your hand is above the level of the keyboard. So there are ways of doing this. If you can't lift your hands to get onto the keyboard has to be sat flat onto a table, and you need a wrist rest. And wrist rests you can get, because I know a lot of secretaries and people have, admin people have wrist rests, because they get a lot of wrist problems when they're typing. So the same for a keyboard. A lot of other musical instruments that use your fingers, get those out as well.
Okay. Someone's asking, do you recommend a specific hand size?
No, I don't, because we don't use them an awful lot with the kids. And I think it has to be, I will not recommend anything, because if there's a cheaper version, get the cheaper version, as long as it works well. I'm not going to tell you how much you should spend of your budget. You have to work out what you can afford and what looks right for you. And also there are hand cycles where you can do feet and hands on the same equipment, which may be a useful way to do it.
Okay. As far as I can see, that's it for questions now. I do keep losing my place, so if anyone's question hasn't been asked, please post it again.
Okay.
It's going tonight.
So the really important thing is not just about hands and arms, but shoulders. And this is where the TheraBand comes in. It doesn't have to be TheraBand. It could literally be a scarf. The beauty of TheraBand is it does mean you've got the ability to work against it. And as I say, for those of you with hoists, the best thing that you can do is have your arms suspended from your hoist, because you will be able to do a lot more. And those of you who've got mobile arm supports, you are doing the movement. All the mobile arm support is doing is giving you a place to move from. So if you don't have mobile arm supports, ideally get off them anyway, because they're too supportive. Get yourself suspended, one arm or both arms. As I say, the hoist bar is one of the best places to do it. And you can do lots of movement backwards and forwards. You can swing from the elbow. You can do circles. The other thing that you need to do is think about different positions. Most of your time you will do all your work sitting, and that's because that's your functional position. But when you're in bed or lying down, you can also do quite a lot in side lying. Excuse me. Look who I found. Okay, so when you're in side lying, you're not moving against gravity. You're moving this way, backwards and forwards. Now, again, you could have your arms suspended, but even simple things like lifting your arm from your side and down, back onto your side, back behind you, in front of you, up off your side, up to your ear. So there's things that you can do in side lying that you probably can't do when you're up. And you can probably get your arm a lot higher with either with the TheraBand, so you could have your arm supported and do it with your arm suspended when you're in side lying. Take your hand up to your head, bring it back, forward, swing, swing that way is a different way of doing it if you're in side lying. But don't forget your shoulders, because it's really important if you want to improve your arm function that you can start with your reach. And again, don't forget your sliding thing, because if you are sliding, you are working your shoulders. Sit down for a minute, doll. So that when you're doing this, you can be working, get those shoulders moving. You don't have to lift them up to be moving. You can slide it forwards, you can slide it across, you can slide it out, slide it back. You do not have to lift it up for starters. Get those shoulders moving. Now, the other thing you have to remember about shoulders is there's two different things you're talking about. There's your shoulder joint, which is where the bone at the top of your arm, your humerus, moves around. And then there's your shoulder girdle, which is your shoulder blades up to your ears, backwards and forwards. And that's two different lots of movement. And it's often much easier to move that shoulder girdle first than lift your arm up. You need to get that shoulder girdle working. You need to be able to get your shoulder blades to touch each other at the back. Try and squish your shoulder blades backwards to touch each other. Bring your shoulder blades up to your ears. Take your shoulder blades down your back towards your bottom and bring them forwards. Now, most of you do not need to bring them forwards and up, because that's where you spend most of your time anyway, when your head's supported here. And the other thing is, those of you who spend a lot of time here, this is another thing that you could be doing. This is another good exercise to think of your ristiplam. Can I actually spend longer without doing this? Because if I'm doing this all the time, then I've lost a hand. But shoulder girdle. And if we work that shoulder girdle, it will work that neck and we'll get less of this. But shoulder blades back towards each other. Try and get them to touch in the middle. If you can, you're a bit bizarre, but that's the idea. And then down towards your bum. Slide them down as though you're trying to get them to reach your waistband. And that is good exercise by itself, because those muscles help to support you when you lift your arm. And people don't realize this. Moving your arm, soon as you lift your arm, your shoulder blade has to stabilize your shoulder joint. So if you don't get the muscles around your shoulder blade working, you're going to find it much harder to actually work your arm. Because if your shoulder blade's weak and wobbly, you can't think about it. If your shoulder blade's weak and wobbly, it's much harder to lift your arm up. Your shoulder blade's stable and strong, then it's much, much easier to work that. So back. You can use the TheraBand for back, even if you don't get anywhere. It's arms apart. Pull that TheraBand. Lots of TheraBand exercises. The bow and arrow exercise. Again, you may find that you need your arms suspended from your hoist bar, but this one will help you to pull that back. Have the TheraBand tied to something if you can't hold it with the other hand, or get the person you're working with to hold it for you so that you're doing that one. Pull that TheraBand apart. Even if you're resting on the table, you can be pulling the TheraBand apart, is working your shoulder blades and your shoulders. So if it's too easy to slide, get something to work against. And if it's easy to slide, get your kilo bag and try sliding that and sliding it in and sliding it out. You may not be able to lift it, but there's no reason why you shouldn't be sliding it backwards and forwards and in and out. Any questions, Marnie, because we're running out of time?
The main one which has come through a few times is about the TheraBand, and yes, whether different colours mean different strength of elastic, yes, and when you start absolutely and build up.
Not only does it mean different strength, but it's different thickness. Now, one of the things that we use a lot of at Great Ormond Street, and a lot of people have never heard of, is cream. Cream is very, very light. You cannot buy it. It is very much a special order. TheraBand may sell it to you direct. I don't know if you can get small pieces. We buy it by the roll. This is the cream, the lightest. It's quite thin, but it still gives you that resistance. And the beauty of it is, you want more resistance, you double it. Now you want more resistance, you double it again. But this is the cream. As I say, you will very, very rarely find it's a special order, and only TheraBand make it. Because at the moment, you will go to places like Flying Tiger or other sports shops and buy a piece of TheraBand, and there's all sorts of different makes. This one's called Stretcher Band. There's one called Meglio. They're all different. This one hasn't got a name on at all. It's not a very nice feeling one, but yes, mostly it goes from light colors to dark colors, but that doesn't work exactly. Yellow is lighter than red, is lighter than green, is lighter than blue, is lighter than gray, is lighter than black, but it's not the same with every make. Some of them have the different way around. Green might be lighter than blue, or blue might be lighter than green. But generally, the easiest thing is to start with a fairly lightweight one. Yellow and red do tend to be some of the lighter ones. And if you need something a bit stronger, double it. It's as simple as that. Just double it. So that better to start off with something lighter. Now, the other thing that you can do, the further apart you have your hands, the easier it is to stretch. So if you've got your hands there, you've got more stretchy bits between your two hands than if you have your hands closer together. There's less bit to stretch. It's harder work, but you're working different muscles. The further apart you have your hands, the different places that you can use them. Now, one of the things that a lot of people will find is it's actually quite hard to hold the TheraBand. And if that's the case, what you may need to do is loop it, or get somebody to loop it and make it into a loop so that you're not actually having to hold it, that you're putting your hand through the loop and holding the loop. Maybe easier than holding the TheraBand. holding a loop, or even tying it onto your hand, and that might be easier than trying to hold it, but you'll need somebody to do that. Now be careful when you're tying TheraBand. You need to make a double knot, and it sometimes then can be difficult to undo it, but if you just do one, it can sort of fly apart and you can end up smacking yourself in the face, or the TheraBand smacks you in the face, which is not what you want. You need to keep it away from your face ideally. Questions?
So are people better off going directly to the TheraBand site rather than looking on things like Amazon and eBay?
Not necessarily, not necessarily, as long as it gives you an idea of the resistance. If it says strong resistance or heavy resistance, you probably need to keep away from it. It should say light resistance, because as I say, if it says light resistance, you can always double it to make it harder.
Okay. Someone's, because you covered it at the start, but I wonder whether they work right here, is being able to put down so that they can slide arms and slide elbows.
Okay, so what we started with is what I have here is a piece of cardboard. This is artist board. You will buy this as an art shop or office supplies. This actually is blue on the other side, and this is a mounting board, which Marnie will know all about. But you don't need that. You need, as I say, the last Amazon box that you got, you can chop up the Amazon box, particularly if it's a bigger box. If you got something for Christmas that was bigger, you know, one of those wonderful Christmas presents that you always love, like a Dyson or something, you know, for the house, or you can use this sort of slidey tableclothy stuff that you put down when the kids are splashing food all over the place, you know, that sort of nice PVC type stuff. Splat mats that you might have had for the kids to go underneath the high chairs, stop the carpet getting covered. You may have any sort of plastic sheeting that you can slide on.
Okay, great. As far as I can see, that's it for questions.
Well, I think we've just about exhausted the time that we've had. We can talk more about arms and upper limbs. Again, if you send Marnie or Lucy your ideas for webinars, we will be back again in a fortnight. We haven't quite decided what we will be doing then. That we may go through a few more scales. Certainly, if you want to download the EK scale, just look it up online. It's another lovely scale that you can do yourself, and it's in fact very much a self-reported scale. Look up the EK scale, and that's another great one to test yourself against. It's much more about activities of daily living, about shouting, about coughing, about swallowing, about eating. Lots and lots of nice things on the EK scale is another great one to assess yourself on.
Okay, great. Well, thank you again, Marion. It's been brilliant.
Thanks a lot, Marnie. I will see you in a fortnight. Take care. Bye.